George Clooney, a man known the world over for his refined, gentlemanly presence and unforgettable roles on screen. After decades of conquering Hollywood, Clooney has earned not only 2 Academy Awards, but also built a life many would consider a dream, residing in a $100 million villa on the shores of Lake Como, driving a vintage Corvette along the Italian waters each morning, and once gifting $1 million to each of his closest friends, out of pure gratitude. Yet, behind that polished image lies a side less often seen: conflicts with directors right on set, harsh scrutiny from the media over his family, and a love life that, for many years, sparked controversy. A man who once declared he would never marry eventually changed everything for one woman. From the dazzling lights of fame to quiet, compassionate gestures behind the scenes, George Clooney has lived a life that continues to captivate and inspire. And today, you are invited to step into that remarkable journey. What gives a young boy, once afflicted with facial paralysis and raised in a small town in Kentucky, the courage to believe that one day his face would appear on the big screen in Hollywood? And what happens when even those closest to him, his family, and people within the entertainment industry, doubt that he could ever make it? The story of George Clooney did not begin with fame or fortune, but with long years of uncertainty and trials. George Clooney was born on May 6, 1961, in Lexington, Kentucky, into a family with artistic roots. His father, Nick Clooney, was a television host. His aunt, Rosemary Clooney, a celebrated singer in the 1950s. But this legacy did not guarantee him any advantage. On the contrary, growing up close to the spotlight made him all the more aware of the distance between dreamers and the truly successful. At the age of 14, George was diagnosed with Bell's palsy, a neurological disorder that left half of his face paralyzed for nearly a year. For a teenager on the cusp of adulthood, such a dramatic change in appearance was a deep emotional blow. He was teased by peers. Adults avoided discussing it. George tried to appear composed, but internally, he was filled with confusion and self-doubt. The very face he had pinned his hopes on had become his greatest obstacle. George enrolled at Northern Kentucky University, but eventually dropped out. Not because he disliked studying, but because he realized he couldn't live an ordinary life. Yet Hollywood doesn't open its doors to those who arrive empty-handed. Before landing his first role, George worked a string of odd jobs, selling shoes, cutting tobacco, even selling insurance. These were not passions, but necessities, means of survival, while waiting for a chance that might never come. While actors like Tom Cruise were already rising stars, George continued auditioning, often met with cold remarks like, "You don't have the presence of a star." But he didn't give up. Instead of growing bitter, he became more persistent. Instead of withdrawing, he studied more, read scripts, trained his voice, because he understood that if the front door wouldn't open, perhaps he could find a smaller door and slip in. His first credited role came in the late 1970s in the miniseries Centennial, a part so minor it was quickly forgotten. Then came a role in the sitcom ER in 1984, not to be confused with the famous series that would come later. But it was a small but important step, giving George experience and confidence. It was during this period that his character was forged, never overly expectant, but never willing to surrender. There were times when George wondered if he had chosen the wrong path, but not once did he allow himself to stop trying. His was not the tale of a star born to shine, but the journey of a man who was told no again and again, and still refused to give up. For nearly 15 years, George Clooney worked without a breakthrough. But then, In 1994, he was cast as Dr. Doug Ross in a new television drama called ER. That role didn't just put his name on the Hollywood map. It opened a new chapter in the life of a man whom the industry had nearly overlooked. How does someone once deemed not striking enough for the screen become one of Hollywood's most enduring symbols of charm and earn Academy Award nominations as an actor, director, and producer? If you had witnessed George Clooney endure hundreds of fruitless auditions with quiet determination, you would understand his fame was never a gift, but the well-earned reward of perseverance. In 1994, George Clooney finally stepped out of the shadows of supporting roles when he was cast as Dr. Doug Ross in the television series ER. This was a leading role, a character both intelligent and emotionally complex, and Clooney delivered a nuanced performance that captured the hearts of millions across America. ER quickly became a television phenomenon, and Clooney's salary soared. By the end of the series, he was earning approximately $100,000 per episode. For someone who had once cut tobacco for a living, slept in his car, and faced constant rejection at casting calls, this was not only a financial triumph, it was a major turning point in self-belief. In 2001, Ocean's 11 premiered and became a massive hit. Clooney played Danny Ocean, a suave, confident, and effortlessly charming thief. The film was not only a box office success, but also cemented Clooney's image as a modern-day gentleman. Alongside Brad Pitt, Matt Damon, and Julia Roberts, Ocean's 11 propelled him into the ranks of the decade's most bankable stars. Yet Clooney aspired to more than acting alone. He directed Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, 2002, a unique take on American television during the Cold War era, and followed it with Good Night and Good Luck, 2005, a thoughtful black-and-white film about press freedom. The latter was nominated for 6 Academy Awards, including Best Director and Best Picture. Also in 2005, Clooney took on a physically demanding role in Syriana, for which he gained weight and underwent a complete transformation. While filming an intense scene, he suffered a severe spinal injury that required surgery and resulted in prolonged pain. Yet he refused to abandon the role. It was this performance that earned him the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor, an enduring testament to his resilience and unwavering commitment to the craft. In 2012, Clooney returned to the Oscars, this time as a producer. Argo, directed by Ben Affleck and co-produced by Clooney, won Best Picture of the Year. The victory further affirmed his multifaceted influence across the film industry as an actor, director, writer, and producer. These achievements were accompanied by significant financial rewards. From multi-million-dollar salaries to lucrative brand endorsements, Clooney became one of the highest-earning actors of the 2000s. From the boy who once stood quietly backstage watching his Aunt Rosemary perform, George Clooney has come to live a life even he once scarcely dared to dream of. A villa on Lake Como, a historic home in the English countryside, and intimate evening gatherings with close friends. Join us in the next chapter as we explore this elegant and extraordinary life. An antique villa by Lake Como, a 400-acre French estate, and a luxury apartment in the heart of Manhattan, George Clooney's lifestyle does not resemble that of a typical Hollywood star. It is a blend of classic elegance, modern refinement, and just a hint of charming unpredictability. To Clooney, success is not measured solely by Oscar statuettes or box office figures. It is also reflected in the places he chooses to call home. And each of those homes, whether in Italy, France, or Manhattan, bears a distinct mark of his personality. Villa Oleandra, a gem on the shores of Lake Como. If there is one place that embodies George Clooney's way of life, it is Villa Oleandra. his lakeside estate in Como, Italy. Purchased in 2002 for around $7 million, this historic villa is now valued at nearly $100 million. But its true worth goes far beyond numbers. Situated in Laglio, a peaceful village nestled against the Alps, Villa Oleandra boasts 25 rooms, a swimming pool, tennis court, private cinema, and a dedicated garage for his vintage motorcycle collection. Ivy-covered stone walls, ancient cobbled hallways, and balconies opening onto the shimmering lake create a scene straight out of a classic European film. This is also where George hosted his wedding to Amal in 2014 and regularly welcomes close friends like Matt Damon, Cindy Crawford, and Meghan Markle. Unlike celebrities drawn to the bright lights of the city, Clooney opts for privacy and timeless beauty, qualities only someone of his sensibility can fully appreciate. Domaine du Canadel, a taste of France in nature's embrace. In 2021, George and Amal expanded their real estate portfolio by acquiring Domaine du Canadel, a 425-acre estate in Provence, France, for approximately $8.3 million. Far from a typical celebrity retreat, this French chateau sits among vineyards, olive groves, and manicured paths. Inside are a 72-foot swimming pool, a private chapel, and rooms restored in 18th-century style. George frequently retreats here to escape the public eye, write scripts, or simply cook for Amal. This is not a property to show off. It's a place to return to, and that makes it all the more valuable. The Manor at Sunning Eye, a literary hideaway in England located in Oxfordshire, England, the manor Clooney purchased in 2014 for about $13 million, is one of his most historic and unique residences. Set beside the River Thames, the home features a private cinema, vast reading room, swimming pool, gym, and a garden that stretches across 4 acres. But its most defining trait is its deep connection to the cultural history of the region, a place once home to renowned English writers and scholars. Clooney once said he loves the intelligent quiet of sunning, where each morning begins with birdsong, the aroma of Amal's freshly brewed coffee, and the sense that life is a gift, not a race. Studio City Villa, a memento from stardom's early days. Back in Los Angeles, Clooney still maintains a special property, his Studio City home, purchased in 1995 from singer Stevie Nicks for just $2.2 million. The house has undergone several renovations and now includes a home theater, recording studio, and a trophy room housing his Oscars and Golden Globes. Though more modest than his European estates, it remains his Hollywood base, a place where he once wrote scripts, rehearsed lines, and reflected on his early days under the spotlight. Manhattan apartment, a symbol of contemporary sophistication. In 2016, Clooney and Amal spent $14.7 million on a Manhattan apartment at 100 East 53rd Street, a luxury tower designed by Foster & Partners, located near the United Nations headquarters. With high ceilings, floor-to-ceiling glass walls, minimalist European interiors, and 24/7 concierge service, the apartment is as refined as it is practical. For Amal, a human rights lawyer often working at the UN, this home is not just a place to rest. It is a bridge between art and justice, between Hollywood and the world. George Clooney has never been one to chase flashy supercars. To him, every vehicle he drives tells a story, a memory, a cultural statement, a quiet expression of identity. No noise, no labels, just a reflection of who he is, timeless, tasteful, and truly irreplaceable. If real estate reveals one's taste in living, Clooney's garage tells another story, of nostalgic sophistication, restraint, and an enduring love for craftsmanship, technology, and the golden age he holds dear. Chevrolet Corvette FIV 8C1 convertible, 1958. A breath of classic America. Standing out in his Lake Como garage is the 1958 Chevrolet Corvette FIV 8C1 convertible, a vintage American masterpiece with a rounded frame, striking red and white two-tone paint, and chrome detailing that gleams like a mirror. Collectors estimate its value at around $150,000, but to George, it's priceless. Not for its rarity, but for the emotion it evokes. This is the car he often drives on quiet summer mornings around the lake. No chauffeur, no bodyguard, just him and the wind. It takes him back to his father's youth, to an America filled with optimism, when open roads symbolized freedom. Clooney once said, "Driving this car isn't about going somewhere. It's about remembering who I am." Tesla Roadster, a pioneer's spirit. Without the noise, among the first in Hollywood to own a Tesla Roadster, Clooney didn't buy it to impress, but out of curiosity. Curiosity about technology, the environment, and whether a silent engine could still deliver the thrill of driving. That first-generation Roadster, now a collector's item worth $250,000 to $300,000, marked a turning point for electric sports cars. For George, it was a quiet yet powerful declaration. He was ready to embrace the future, but in his own understated way. Lexus LS, the quiet definition of luxury. No Rolls-Royce, no Bentley. For long drives, George chooses the Lexus LS, a top-tier Japanese sedan renowned for its smoothness and discretion. Valued between $90,000 and $110,000, it doesn't belong to the world of showy luxury, but rather to those who understand subtle sophistication. With Amal by his side, George behind the wheel, they won't appear on the cover of car magazines, but they still turn heads. Because that quiet grace is something money can't buy. Yet what people remember most about Clooney isn't what he owns. It's how he lives, from how he begins a morning, to how he hosts friends on quiet evenings, to how he chooses to spend his fortune. Quietly, deliberately, and with unwavering integrity. Habits and lifestyle, when simplicity becomes the ultimate luxury. George Clooney never needed social media to become an icon. He doesn't post his meals, nor share personal moments, because to him, a true lifestyle doesn't need to be shown. It just needs to be lived. Each morning, he wakes beside Amal and their two children at either their Como villa or sunning estate, reads the printed newspaper, and often starts his day with an espresso or a ride around the lake on a vintage motorcycle. Not to impress, but to slow down in a world that rushes. At home, George makes cocktails himself using Casamigos, the tequila brand he co-founded and later sold for $1 billion before watching movies with friends in his private cinema. Dinners at Villa Oleandra don't feature DJs or laser lights, just jazz music, home-cooked meals, and genuine laughter. To friends like Brad Pitt or Matt Damon, George isn't just a movie star, he's Europe's finest host. Clooney is also known for avoiding frivolous spending. He's turned down multi-million-dollar endorsement deals simply because, as he once put it, they didn't feel right. He doesn't collect luxury watches, doesn't chase hypercars, and once joked, "I like money, but I don't like it running my life." To George Clooney, true luxury lies in the freedom to choose, and he has chosen a life of peace, privacy, and richness far beyond anything gilded. George Clooney's fortune isn't just measured in multi-million-dollar villas or rare vintage cars. It lies in the way he lives, intentionally, quietly, and with depth. But behind this image of graceful perfection, there have also been times when he faced controversy, misunderstanding, and the weight of fame. And it is that hidden side that we are about to explore next. George Clooney, a Hollywood icon, always seen with composed grace and a confident smile. But even someone like him has faced moments of challenge, times that forced him to choose between staying silent or speaking up, between preserving his image or standing by his values. What happened, and how did he overcome it? On-set conflict during Three Kings. When professionalism meets responsibility. In 1999, during the filming of Three Kings, Clooney openly clashed with director David O. Russell. The disagreement had nothing to do with acting. It stemmed from George's disapproval of the way the director treated the crew. Clooney did not air his grievances in the media, but on set, he chose to take a stand. The incident caused significant tension. Yet for Clooney, it was not a scandal. It was a matter of principle. "If I don't speak up, then I'm part of the problem," he would later reflect. While many actors might avoid confrontation for the sake of their careers, George Clooney showed he was not just a skilled performer, but someone willing to protect those working behind the scenes. And that is what distinguishes a celebrity from someone truly admirable. The Daily Mail incident, when family honor becomes the line that must not be crossed. In 2014, the Daily Mail published a false article about Amal Alamuddin's mother, claiming she opposed the marriage to Clooney on religious grounds. The story was entirely untrue, and this time George responded with firm but calm resolve. He wrote a public letter addressing the falsehoods, detailing the inaccuracies, and demanding a formal apology. There were no threats of lawsuits, no harsh words, only facts, presented with precision and dignity to defend his family's honor. Many celebrities might choose to ignore the media for fear of stirring controversy. But Clooney drew a clear line. Privacy and family are sacred, and not up for compromise. It was a moment that further endeared him to fans, a man with a serene demeanor, yet unwavering in his devotion to his loved ones. Love and relationships, from personal choices to lasting commitment. Before marrying Amal, Clooney had been through several public relationships. His first marriage to actress Talia Balsam, 1989 to 1993, ended quietly, without scandal, but left him with lasting reflections. What followed were years of bachelorhood, during which he was dubbed the most charming man alive. An image defined by charm, elegance, and independence. But it wasn't until he met Amal, a brilliant, private, and principled human rights lawyer, that George truly felt ready to settle down. He proposed just months after they met, and that marriage changed more than his personal life. It transformed how the world saw him. No longer just the eternal bachelor, he became a partner, a father, and a man of family. From the dazzling spotlight of Ocean's 11 to personal trials behind the scenes, George Clooney has proven that fame alone does not define a person. It is how one confronts challenges that reveals true character. And through it all, not only did he remain grounded, he used his influence for good, in business, in philanthropy, and in countless quiet acts of kindness. This leads us to the final chapter of his story: legacy, compassion, and what makes George Clooney a timeless icon. What does George Clooney do with his fame? When he's not on the red carpet or on set, he devotes his time to things that few people notice, yet these are what most clearly reflect the true man behind the spotlight. Shortly after selling his tequila brand, Casamigos, for $1 billion, George Clooney walked away with hundreds of millions of dollars. The rest was divided equally among his business partners. He didn't build a lavish new estate, nor did he launch a fashion label. Clooney chose a different path, to share his good fortune quietly. On a rare occasion, he invited 14 of his closest friends, those who had supported him during his early, unknown years in Los Angeles, to his home. Without any announcements, without cameras, he gifted each of them a suitcase containing $1 million in cash, as a gesture of deep gratitude. Together with Amal, his intelligent and courageous wife, George founded the Clooney Foundation for Justice. The foundation focuses on advancing education and protecting justice for the vulnerable, especially women, children, and victims of human rights abuses in developing nations. They provide legal assistance, fund systems to monitor human rights violations, and collaborate with law schools to train the next generation of lawyers to serve their communities. No self-promotion, no branding, just consistent, meaningful, long-term action. George has also been at the forefront of several important community efforts. In 2010, after the devastating earthquake in Haiti, he organized a televised benefit concert, gathering artists and raising millions in relief funds. In 2018, following the tragic school shooting in Florida, George and Amal donated $500,000 to the March for Our Lives movement, along with a heartfelt message, "We believe in you." He didn't give lengthy speeches. He didn't seek media attention. But those directly involved, from students to volunteers, knew that he stood beside them, lending his support to those in need of a voice. And perhaps the most admirable part is that Clooney never saw any of it as extraordinary. He once said, "I'm just trying to live right. If you're luckier than others, you should share that." From his historic villa on Lake Como to the modest Kentucky town where he was born, George has always sought to use his success to create positive change, whether on screen or in real life. George Clooney doesn't live to prove anything. He lives to share his good fortune, to inspire through action, and to leave behind a legacy of kindness, one that does not fade with time and does not depend on profit or fame. And perhaps it is in those quiet, unseen moments that George Clooney has written the most meaningful chapter of his life. Santorin.